Episode 2. A distant, unsettling bird calls a raven and gets Hank's attention. Hank learned as a young man hunting in the wilderness of Pennsylvania that the forest is always talking to you. You just have to understand what it is saying. Some birds can be counted on to pipe up when a threat is present. Listening to the calls is a matter of life or death. Hank comes across an abandoned campsite. He examines a cold fire pit, his senses on high alert. He picks up a broken tool, its purpose now unclear, perhaps something for climbing or survival in the mountains. He finds a torn backpack, its contents spilled out. A discarded map catches his eye. He picks it up, his brow furrowing. A wave of anxiety washes over him. He closes his eyes and a brief, fragmented memory flashes through his mind. The chaos of war, the screams of the wounded, the face of a fallen comrade, the image superimposed on a backdrop of snow-covered mountains. He shakes his head, trying to clear the memories. The high altitude makes him feel slightly disoriented. He takes a deep breath and looks around, his eyes scanning the rocky tree line looking for any possible threat. Or did he just walk into an ambush edge of a steep, rocky slope? Stunted pine trees cling to the side of the slope. Shadows are long and dramatic in the thin mountain air. Alara, partially hidden behind a large boulder, her face wary but determined. She's dressed in layers suitable for the cold, and her makeshift spear clenched tightly in her hands, ready to fight and defend herself. The sound of rustling leaves of aspen and hardy pine trees. A faint, almost imperceptible sound of movement among the rocks. Hank hears a noise in the nearby forest. He draws his hunting knife, his movements fluid and practiced. At that very same moment, Scout freezes and starts pointing toward the boulders up ahead of them. Scout keeps looking back at Hank for direction and orders. Hank gives a hand sign for Scout to stay. Silence, then a figure emerges from behind a large boulder. It's Alara, late 20s, resourceful. Trader holding a makeshift spear. Hank has traded with her in the past, and few brief moments passed between them, but nothing ever happened, and Hank didn't want the responsibility of a woman traveling with him. In Hank's mind, she was just another liability, each too fearful of each other's intentions. So after the dealing was done, they always went their own ways. Now she looks injured and exhausted. She's dressed in layers of scavenged clothing, adapted for the cold mountain environment. Scout recognizes her as well, and Hank releases Scout to go to Alara. She looks relieved to see Scout, not so much for him, Hank thought. She felt very vulnerable being injured, and knew she could never take on Hank one-on-one like this and win. She just had to hope he was a gentleman he portrayed himself to be. Like their past meetings, she was always thinking about Hank because he intrigued her. He was the first and only man that never made an advance on her or said anything offensive, rude, or crude, just pure business, and that was it. Alara knew that Hank has seen violence and is a survivor, but his eyes couldn't hide the sadness and trauma those eyes must have seen. She respected Hank, but feared him as well, not that he was threatening he just knows his type. She knew Hank would and could do whatever it takes to survive. She thought of him as being honest, honorable, and a child of Christ, which shocked her and just added to the intrigue that grew in her thoughts. What was Hank like before the event? She wondered. Hank gave her an extra pocket Bible that Hank had and gave it to Alara the last time they traded a few weeks back. Hank said it was a good read. That was just a good read. She knew he meant more than that, and it is probably the only thing that keeps him going. She reads it daily. Fires can get you killed, so not much reading by the campfire. Those days are gone. Hank steps out into full view and greets Alara. Is that you, Alara? Are you in need of assistance? You look injured. That's a pretty bad gash there, and it looks pretty fresh. What happened? Were you attacked? Alara didn't know how to describe what happened, so she just put her head down and said nothing, thinking to herself that if she tells Hank the truth, he will think less of her. She finally spoke and said, I got injured, but it's not too bad. Hank responded, I ran across an abandoned campsite down the way. If you can follow me there, we can tend to your wounds. Hank knew she was hiding something and didn't push the subject further. She'll tell him if she wants him to know. Hank examines Alara's wound. A deep cut on her arm. He uses a clean cloth from his pack. At the abandoned campsite, Hank has helped dress Alara wounds near the fire pit with no fire. He offers her water. Hank handed Alara a metal canteen. Their hands, both gloved, almost touch. Alara drinks, her eyes fixed on Hank. A mixture of suspicion and gratitude. She shivers slightly, despite the layers of clothing, thinking to herself it sure would be nice to have a fire to warm up by. Then Hank asked her if she would like a fire tonight. She said yes, but that can be risky. Hank told her and assured her that it would be fine for tonight. Hank tore apart the fire pit and dug 2 holes, one big and one smaller next to the bigger one. Alara watched, think Hank has lost his mind. Then Hank goes off and gathers up branches and breaks them between 2 stumps near camp. He fills a larger hole and lights it with flint and steals a piece of charcloth that passed the ember into a bird's nest wad of dry grasses and pine needles. He blew it into a flame and placed it on the wood and added small twigs till it became a full flaming fire. Alara watched and wanted to ask questions like why the second hole, but chose to be silent and watch Hank do his thing. He obviously has done this before and seemed well practiced at it. Alara was amazed there was no smoke from Hank's campfire. Finally she had to ask, "Looks like you've done this before. I never seen a fire pit made in such a way." Hank was glad to hear her ask a question and was glad to have someone to talk to. Hank told her that this fire pit design was created by the Lakota people to hide from Custer, and it's called a Dakota fire pit. Great for stealth camping. Alara asked who's Custer. Hank replied just some dead old general that got all his men killed in the Indian Wars of America's frontier. The second hole was to allow air to be drawn down the bottom of the burn pit and works like a reverse chimney, and that is why there's next no smoke at all. Then Hank gathered the pack goats and unloaded them and turned them loose to feed with Scout, ever watchful of the goats, till he can build camp.